Hi, friends. Host Eric here, host of Talking with Finnish People. And if I weren't myself, I'd be somebody else. The eternal battle. I would like to note, please, that I am currently also in the autonomy room, whereby anybody who'd like to go there and join me by talking to me there, welcome to. You won't appear on the stream, but your voice will. So it seems that the eternal battle, the forever battle between good and evil, it has this third component, which is dumb, right? Like, it's hard to correctly call our current COVID reaction evil in any meaningful sense. Certainly nobody's in behind it, it's just dumb. That's all. It's just dumb. And you might say, well, dumb helps evil. Not necessarily. Sometimes dumb helps good. It depends on a lot of factors. But the thing is, it's important to remember that there's sort of a hesitation to accept ideas in general that goes along with your mom's face. It goes along with well, the thing is this, Gen Xial. It's not the case that all Trump voters are dumb. And it's not the case that all dumb people vote for Trump. There are just as many very dumb AOC voters as there are dumb Trump voters, If I'm going to win the presidency, for example, good morning, MJ, I'm going to have to be appealing to all kinds of voters. But what I'm trying to get at is, it seems like sometimes we forget that there's a third party in this battle. It's not Team A versus Team B. It's Team A versus Team B versus Team C. And Team C are the scared people. That's how people express their dumbness, basically, is through fear. Team C are the people who are too scared to make the right decision. Regardless of their alignment, so to speak. Now, the whole idea about there being a battle between good and evil in general is naturally one that assumes that there are both good and evil in the world. The thing is, I really suspect that I'm not used to your gamer trash talk. No. Oh, you mean in the game I got wrecked? Yeah, I certainly did. The thing is, okay, so the problem is, like, something like the COVID response has broadly sort of fallen into left-right lines. Like, Democrats tend to be more hardcore about, like, let's do a bunch of stupid nonsense. I'm too ENTP for League of Legends. Yeah, I'm sure I am. I just, I'd heard so many people talking about it, I decided I wanted to try it out. And I played it for a little while myself. not streaming it the other day, so I had a little bit of familiarity with it. The thing is, I don't know how to use all those. It's too TE. I don't even want to figure it out. It's not worth the hassle. Like, okay, so let's say I got my character up stronger or something. I still need to learn how to successfully do all the things, like push this, then that, then the other thing. Something important will happen. I don't know. Video games just don't really entertain me that much anymore, I guess. If I were going to play a game that would entertain me or keep my interest entirely for a full game of it, it would probably be Madden. If I had a console, if I had like a PS5 or something, PS4, I would. I like playing Madden. Before Madden, I liked NCAA football. Right. So do you get to keep your items that you buy for the next game? I was also playing Lee Sin on bot. Well, originally I was playing with real people, and then this Romanian fellow who was there said that I should put it on bot, and then I didn't. That didn't work, but then I guess I switched it to bot, and by the bottom. Oh, you mean the bottom of the map? There's top lane, mid lane, bottom lane, and jungle. Oh. Well, I didn't know that. I mean, you could see on the map that you can go different directions, but I didn't know that they were referred to as that. At least then you either play on top or jungle. Jungle just goes around killing stuff in the jungle and helps the teammates. But Lee Sin has so many wonderful expressions that he says. Things like, the dragon burned the path, but I walked the road, or something like that, Maybe I should pick a guy that has a long-ranged attack instead. Am I attracted to games like Tetris? I liked Tetris. I do like Tetris. An ad carry, a ranged physical damage dealer, and a support. I think I'd have to pick a different person to be, maybe. Jung writes, we have only to disregard the dependence of dream language on environment and substitute eagle for airplane, dragon for automobile or train, snakebite or injection, and so forth, in order to arrive at the more universal and more fundamental language of mythology. This gives us access to the primordial images that underlie all thinking and have considerable influence even on our scientific ideas. Boy, talk about imposing his function bias on everybody. My goodness. Not everybody is all about images, Like, my thinking is so non-visual. Well, the thing is, I don't want to commit enough time to a game to really be good at it anyway. I just, well, I like the idea of live streaming a game. See, what I've really wanted to do for a while, though, is I want to have somebody else play a game and I do play-by-play announcing on it. I'd like to be a Madden commentator. Yeah, I'd be an excellent Madden commentator. Just the other day, Rachel and I were watching football, and we were watching it out here actually, and we were watching the Fox stream, because if you put in your cable provider, and you get that channel on cable, which we do, then you can stream it out here on the internet instead. But if you don't have a cable provider, you can't. It's weird, but it makes sense. But anyway, when the football announced during the stream, though, they lost all audio to the announcers for a while. It was silent except for the sounds of the game. So I just took over and started announcing it. I did an excellent job, I must say. I totally am an excellent football announcer. Yeah. Well, I feel like I've wasted my life, really, to be honest. I could do voice actors. I mean, it's weird to say that because it's so easy for me to just kind of dismiss all the work I did and success I had and lives that I influenced as a debate coach, with a lot of times for big squads, lots of people. But yeah, I feel like I wasted my life. Why? Because regardless of how hard I'm patting my own back, I'm an absolute natural at things like announcing sports. It's comes out of me like no problem at all. Fourth slot. The thing is, I don't pat myself on the back too hard, but I've learned to acknowledge where I am unusually talented. And it just feels like I've wasted my life as a consequence. Granted, I am unusually talented as a debate coach, but I don't know. I guess I'm selfish enough to think, why would I want to help all those children when I could be famous? I'm trying, MJ. I'm trying. And I genuinely am trying more. I'll probably delete that last stream, which had some problems. I'm trying to clean things up a bit, and have things be more purposeful. Like this thing that I'm doing right now, which is basically streaming for the purpose of chatting with people more really than to talk about a subject. Although I do have a subject matter in mind. I'm trying to curtail that a little bit, hopefully to make it such that my live streams are more NI, Sorry for the delay here. I'm deleting that gaming stream. Okay. So anyhow, you say you were NI ignoring. I like that. What do you call your SI? Is it remembering? Oh, well, it would be seeking. The verb would be seeking. I would go with socionics' term on that. I think people do seek their fourth slot, but I think it's more complicated than the socionics understanding of it. So from my perspective, well, some of your best gamer trash talk was on that stream? Oh, you mean in the live chat? Sorry, I didn't even think about the live chat. I just thought about the fact that the video would be no fun to watch because apparently the game wasn't actually showing for the first whole half of the time I was playing it because I had it on Windows capture instead of display capture. I think it was actually showing the second half once I switched it to display capture. I mean, your dominant function is framing. Second is addressing. Third is aspiring. Fourth is seeking. Fifth is ignoring. Sixth is demonstrating, I guess. Or it's like plan B. You can call it plan B. When your TI doesn't work, you go to your TE. Or when your second doesn't work, you go to your sixth. You go to your second, you go to your third, then you go to your sixth, maybe. Depends, you know. First, I'll try to logic it. Oh, you're not satisfied with that? I'm probably not going to bother with the FE at that point. I'll just go straight to TE. And then the seventh slot is Dunning-Krugering. Eighth slot is exploiting. You exploit your eighth slot function. Or your eighth slot function. I guess that's I would suggest your eighth slot function is doing the exploiting. So maybe the burrow, like a creature, not burrowing under the earth. It carries a lot of your weight for you, but you don't really appreciate it at all. Eighth slot's the angry kid function. Okay. Teenaging. I've called it before the balanced function as well, because it's probably really the only function you afford the correct amount of priority to out of all of them. It's the only one that you have a regular sort of relationship with. So it's like I'm always fighting with myself over SI shit, trying to get myself to eat or well, it's what I've also referred to it as the insecurity slot, because it's where you feel subject to the most critique, ultimately, where you feel like the critiques wound you the most. You probably feel subject to critique most in your sixth slot, but when people critique you about your eighth slot, you take it to heart and it hurts you, and you get defensive about it. But in some sense, it's because you're the only one who's using it right. Eighth slot, I think, is the most unconscious slot, and it's something that happens kind of automatically when you need it to, in order for you to meet your frame's demands. The first slot being framing, it sets out the whole demands for you as a being, basically. I need opportunities to ideate. But you're unaware of these frames explicitly until you learn our cognitive functions. And so it just sort of happens, and of course, people presume that their experience of being an entity is basically equivalent to other people's experiences of being an entity. A simple example of this is I used to assume, with no uncertainty at all, that everybody wanted their turn as the center of attention. So it's like my way of being generous would be, okay, now you get up and entertain everybody. But of course, lots of people don't want to do that. That's not generous to an ISTJ to say to them, okay, now you get up and impromptu entertain everybody. You're not being a nice guy and making sure you're being fair to let everybody have their turn to entertain. Your eighth slot likes to remind people of everything. What's the eighth slot of INTP and INTJ? INTP's is FI, INTJ's is SI. So eighth slot FI. Well, it's in the service of TI. So it's like for a TI DOM, in order to have really fully deliberated something out, they need to have deliberated out all the TI stuff. But there is another deliberation function, and they are fundamentally deliberators. So they get the fact that you've got to incorporate the other deliberation function too to make sure things are really fully deliberated out. Now, if you look at the equivalent, for me, I'm an action type. I understand that action is talking, basically. But because I'm an action type, I get the fact that I can't just talk or ideate. I have to make it manifest or concretize it by doing. That is, say, upload a video, go live on the live stream or whatever. So, as a matter of fact, if you were looking for evidence of strong SE in me, you would look to the number of videos I've uploaded, over 5,200 or something, 5,300 or something like that. So that's more than most people do. Is it smart doing? Not really. Like, people who are way more successful than me have way fewer videos than me. So it's not smart doing in terms of outcome orientation. It's instead my extroverted sensing being the undervalued slave of my extroverted intuition. I don't really think about the doing parts of things. I just know that if I want my FE payoff and I want to be able to any in an environment where there's some things to react against and talk about, then I better do meow meow. I remember Spacey one time noticing like we were doing something. We were all sitting in the driveway in Laverne or something, and people were chatting, and I smoked a cigarette. And all of a sudden, I stood up and I said, "I want to live stream now." And I went inside the garage and I started live streaming. And Spacey noted, "See, that's the difference between INTP and ENTP. You stand up and start walking towards the thing and say, 'I want to live stream now.' I sit here and go, 'It might be nice to live stream. Let me reflect on it some more.' It's because I want to talk out loud to people. I don't just want to ideate. And the thing about INTPs, remember, also, is extroverted intuition is a tool function. It's not an absolute value for them. It's an instrumental value. One thing I want to talk about, in fact, at some length, I want to make a separate video on it, is understanding extroverted sensing, my evolving understanding of it, and how it plays out specifically in ISFPs, but also what it reveals about self-reporting. So ISFPs don't self-report as being particularly SE effective at anything. Like, they typically self-report like INFPs that they lack direction, they're procrastinators, they feel somewhat lost as to what to do or something like that. But when you actually start asking them a lot of concrete questions about what they find satisfying and stuff, then you discover that they're a lot more dewy than they perceive themselves as being. Regardless, though, SE in the tool function means they don't necessarily apply it in their own life all the time. Like, I don't really care about TI consistency when I don't care about it. Like, yeah, well, this is one thing where I'm not going to care about TI then. If maybe you're right, but I don't care. Because it's not an absolute value. It doesn't feel critically important to me that things be consistent. It's contextually appropriate. So it's like, if I'm debating somebody, well, obviously I got to make good logical sense. But if I'm just hanging out with Rachel, and she says something that I think I'm not going to make good logical sense, well, I don't care. FI and TI DOMs is activated when we think they're being FE. They're actually being FI, formal, mannerly, judgmental. Well, I think the FE, FI pair in the 4 and 8. It plays out differently for ISTPs and INTPs as well. ISTPs because they're more physical types, their version of fairness is much more eye for an eye. And ISTPs are like, if you say something mean to an ISTP, you will have something mean said back to you at some point as an express equalizer, because that's what needs to happen for things to be equal, is you need to suffer the same indignity that you imposed upon me. That's the ISTP understanding of it. INTP's understanding of it is well, they're a lot less likely to get even, put it that way. A lot more likely to withdraw, and also if they communicate about it, it's a lot more complicated a communication, probably unnecessarily so. But both types are easily stung by FE attacks if you can get one through, They're both susceptible to FE attacks. INTPs can weather the storm. I mean, if that's what you want to call it. You can call SE polar weathering the storm, but you'll notice they're still at the dock even when the weather's nice. So I'm not sure they're actually in that cove to weather the storm if they're parked there indefinitely. Where? Abraham, that's not Jesus Christ. That's Kitty Meow Meow Pants. That's who that is. That's Kitty Meow Meow Pants. She's the meowiest of all the Kitty Meow Pantses. Aren't you? Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, what a beauty. Oh, what a substantial beauty. You have entered all of the kitty pageants and you have walked off with number 1 first place trophies in every single kitty pageant you've entered. If you don't notice the storm, it's easy to weather it. Yeah, my kitty is a really special kitty. I tell you, I really love her a lot. Even though she doesn't, she's not a giving kitty. Okay. Kitty wants me on Kitty's terms and not on my terms. That's it. But, that's what you get when you have an ISFP cat. My cat is an ISFP. Can I have FI instead of FE as an INTP? You can't have FI instead of FE as an INTP now. Not in your conscious stack. But, I mean, if you're saying that you are FI instead of FE, then you'd be an INFP, not an INTP. Eric loves ISFP kitty cat. That's true. I do. I will admit, I'm going to fully admit this. I have it on at least one occasion in my life, probably more. Or at least 2 occasions in my life, and probably more. I have intercoursed an ISFP woman. On at least 2 separate occasions, one ISFP woman. And then I may have intercoursed another ISFP woman that I didn't know. I mean, I didn't type people. I didn't used to type people that much, I mean, I didn't used to type people at all. Prior to the YouTube thing, at like age 42 or so, I didn't think what people type. Well, I mean, yeah, this is the thing. MJ, I think Socionics is kind of right in that regard, that FI is more active in the INTP than FE is. But that's why I don't like those kind of terms like stronger and weaker, is because they ignore the more the more nuanced understanding of a function, which is to say, it's active, but not conscious, and it's only valued instrumentally. Oh, that's Octavia Silva's number. Remember I was telling you the other day I was going to send you her number because she's like doing channel graphics and stuff, but then I realized I never pushed send, so I just pushed send. You love how alive I am right now. I got to tell you, yesterday was an odd day. I felt as though a months-long pseudo depression that I wasn't even aware was there lifted. In other words, yesterday, for the first time in a long time, I felt like just happy and excited about things and looking forward to new things happening and more developments and and not having it linked to any specific thing, but rather just a general sense of oh boy, life, which I didn't even realize had left me. And I attribute it largely to the whole COVID thing. The way that I had to, it's sort of like future shock almost, to all of a sudden have so many. No, actually, that wasn't the case yesterday. I didn't. I'm talking about, when I say yesterday, I mean the day before yesterday. Sorry. Yesterday was yesterday. Yesterday I was sick. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, though, I was in a super good, happy mood with no Adderall at all. And that's the thing that I remember as being my default basic nature most of the time. But because I'm bipolar, I guess, I didn't realize that I'd been kind of just how much I've been, If I hadn't gotten sick yesterday, because 2 days ago was a happy day. Yesterday, I spent much of the day with stomach problems. I had 3 very large poops over the course of the day. So that was part of the problem. Was probably impacted, Aren't dumb people evil? They often cause harm in the world through ignorance. There's no excuse to be dumb if you have access to the internet. Well, Dawson K., I would like to say that no, dumb people are not evil. And dumbness doesn't necessarily result in bad outcomes. So there are some dumb ideas that turn out to be actually seem to work fine, but they're still dumb ideas. Maybe it's still a dumb thing to do. Like, okay, well, take for example the question of the lady in Florida that I've talked about before, the lightning detector lady. I will answer your question in a second, Razor M. The lightning detector lady, she had a tragic event in her life that would just, destroy anyone, which is her teenage daughter was struck by lightning and basically killed when playing softball in a park in Florida, even though it was a clear blue day. She was put in a vegetative state and died a couple years later. Anyway, now the thing is, her mother then went on this advocacy spree to try to get the state legislature to put lightning detectors in parks so that her daughter would not have died in vain. Now, that's really dumb. Is it evil? No, it's not evil. She doesn't realize that she's doing something wicked because she can only understand the risk from her own experience, right? From her own experience, the risk of having a teenage child killed by lightning in a park on a clear blue day in Florida is extremely high. Very high chance of that happening. That's what her experience tells her. After all, happened to her teenage daughter, right? And so for somebody who's like an SI Dom, they're going to think that the evil thing is that we have left this hole in the fence that let this wild animal through to maul my child. Namely, the parks have no lightning detectors. And yeah, so the intentionality question is critical. Which brings me to Fraser's question: what is metaphysical evil? Okay, so when you're talking about the question of what is good, what is evil, it's typically used. The term evil is typically used to describe people, not actions. Although it can be used to describe actions, right? The thing about that is, I think the lightning lady is ISFJ, probably SI dumb, or ESFJ, SI tool with no polar NI, probably. So when we talk about a person being evil, we talk about them basically as always using an interested calculus that additionally has the feature of not weighing impacts to third parties very much, you know. Could be. I would guess more ESFJ, but it could be ESTJ, MJ. I think it's NI polar is what I think it is. But when we talk about good and evil, a person who's considered evil is somebody who is basically a narcissist. We think of them as having no compunction about, you know, if I can get $1 million, but I got to chop through you with a machete, no problem. You're just in my way at that point. Is there something about lightning detectors that makes them inherently bad? No, it's just it's a matter of finite resources and how to spend them, right? It's like it's an opportunity cost issue. If you want to spend that amount of money on public safety, there's a million better ways to do it. It's like you can actually improve public safety a lot more with that amount of money in countless other ways than preventing what's literally an act of God, once in a lifetime kind of thing that happens. It's not like this has happened before or regularly. It's not like it's a problem implicit to the area that's long plagued them that they've never addressed. It was a freak instance. It's like, you know, somebody getting hit by a meteor that falls, right, and killed. What are we going to do? Put nets above us at all times? You know, you just have to accept sometimes that people die of freak accidents, and that doesn't mean we should have done something differently. We don't need to invite Captain Hindsight to every party. Yes, Abraham? Abraham, wait your turn. The issue that comes with judging on intentionality is there's many people who may not have ill intentions but still harming others. Well, it may become irrelevant as to our determination regarding, like, okay, so let's say what's a particularly terrible backfiery thing that is a policy that just okay, let's say you're advocating for capital gains taxes. Capital gains taxes are the most regressive thing you can possibly implement upon an economy. And a terrible, terrible idea, makes no logical sense, helps nobody, harms, locks down wealth within certain places and prevents it from moving and stuff like that, right? So you're talking about somebody advocating capital gains taxes. What we can say then is the policy you are advocating is a terrible policy. We might even go as far as to call it evil because of the disingenuous way that it talking about a third party when voting. I don't remember what I was talking about. Sorry, you have to refresh my memory more than that. So now I totally lost my train of thought again. It's one of those mornings. I'm going to smoke this joint through this bong because, why? Well, you get the advantages of both. That's why. Why else? What was I talking about before I got my train of thought lost there? Oh yeah, evil and good, right? So you might say that the capital gains policy is evil, but you wouldn't say the person advocating for it is evil, probably, because they don't understand the economics of it well enough. They think, well, capital gains, that's just rich people investing in stocks and cashing in and getting even richer, and of course that should be taxed. They're not evil for their wrongness, but their wrongness may be evil, right? In this case, dumbness goes along with evil, but dumbness doesn't always go along with evil. Sometimes dumbness goes along with good. So it's kind of a challenge for both sides. Let's say I'm going to try to, well, here's an example. Rachel's dad. Rachel's dad was a security guard at this event, and he was told to not let anybody in through this door, including even players that he recognized, unless they had the proper ID to show him. And he stood there at the door, and sure enough, a player came up without the proper ID, and the player said, "But you know me, you recognize me. I'm Yummy Man," whoever the famous player was, But ENFP, Rachel's dad, no, I know my instructions. You are not allowed to come through here, blah blah blah. But was nice about it, and in fact, ended up getting like a commendation for it. The player even reported like a positive report on him and stuff, and so that's an example of dumbness siding with good. It's idiotic. Players are supposed to go through here, but if they don't have the right piece of paper, they're not. You don't let them through here, even if I know it's who they say they are. Yeah, because we don't trust you to make that judgment call, right? Well, you need dumb people in the world, people who accept that I don't trust you to make that judgment call. You make the judgment call I make, and you apply it. I have said it since you said that. Well, I mean, the thing about, there's a saying in criminal justice: intention follows the gun, follows the bullet. So if I pull the trigger of a gun and I'm aiming for Joe, but I accidentally shoot Bob, even if I have a legitimate cause to use deadly force against Joe, I can still be found guilty of murder of Bob, because it's my responsibility to make sure your bullets go where you want them to go. Interestingly, of course, cops aren't held to that standard, or they didn't used to be. But there was a case recently where one of them was held accountable for exactly that, who fired a bunch of shots wildly, and but dumb people are not evil. I don't find dumb evil. Look, there's a lot of dumb people who avoid the important. Okay, let me backtrack a second. Step one. Most of the time, most people don't have to make any moral decisions. So the fact is, we're largely able to avoid making actual moral decisions. There are only some circumstances where we have to, such as being on jury duty requires you to make a serious moral decision. If you are in a position of public leadership of some sort, you have to make serious moral decisions all the time. But most people don't. Most people, they make personal relationship decisions, and they can either be cruel or mean or nasty or evil or whatever, or they can be nice or good or decent and fair. But regardless, it's the scope of it is so limited that it seems hyperbolic to call it evil. It's like you have to consider intentionality, because if you don't, then okay, well, I mean, look at lying, right? The difference between lying and being wrong is whether you know you're intentionally trying to deceive someone or not. It's the most basic kind of moral decision people can make that frequently enough gets made. Should I lie or not? It used to be that I had a whole set of things in my life that I lied about. Anytime I had to make an excuse was fine. Like if I was calling in sick for work and I wasn't really sick, that's fine. If the cop pulls you over, you're welcome to lie to the cop, Eric. It's like this is sort of like this set of exceptions that I had for myself that's gotten smaller and smaller. Of course, it's fine to lie to people, to school people, because they can get you in trouble. But now I find myself struggling to come up with any circumstance in which I think lying is a good idea for me, including dealing with the cops or anybody else. The fact is, if I haven't done anything wrong, I shouldn't lie about it. And if I have done something wrong, I shouldn't lie about it either, because I should come clean and not try to double down, So is it evil to lie? It's a small evil, but yeah, it is. Well, the funny thing is, I was actually sick 2 days ago, and I had a client that I was supposed to meet at 1:00 or something like that. I told Rachel to come out here and open up the room and tell her, hey, Eric's sick. And I was like under the covers, sweating and shivering at the same time. One of those things, like it was pretty awful. But the lady didn't assume I was actually sick. She said, if you're actually sick, instead of just any sick, no, I actually am sick. I don't tend to lie about stuff like that anymore. For example, when my clients want me to do some work and I don't want to do it, I don't say I'm busy or I can't or I have something else. I say, I don't want to do this. I don't feel like it. No, I'm just not feeling it right now. That's the truth. So that's what I'm going to say, I try never to miss things I've scheduled ahead of time for that reason. But like my clients call me a lot, like kind of last minute. Jeffrey has to turn this in tomorrow. Can you help look over with him? Shit like that, So evil is what is harmful to the person, whereas good is defined as what is helpful. Therefore, evil and good are subjective. Okay, well, yeah, but look, you could say good is the upholding of those norms that validate as universal, and evil is the failing to uphold as those norms that validate as universal. A wasteland of embarrassment and social upheaval can be neatly avoided by following a single precept in life: do not lie. That also goes in hand with my thoughts that he's an INFJ. Rachel's remarkably honest too. I never hear her. I've never caught her lying. I never get the sense that she is. I mean, my feeling about dumbness is that by and large, we have, look, there's just as there are built-in resistances to deviance from a genomic mean in a species. Namely, mutations tend to die. Epigenetic traits may get passed on, but if they're too negative, they probably won't. Sexual selection always returns the genome back to the mean because it's selecting healthy examples of genomic, the phenotypic representation of the genome over unhealthy examples. So in the same way, is it the case that there's, on the metaphysical plane, there's a return to truth as a metaphysical mean, and it's done through argumentation. That's anti-evolution propaganda, Genexial. So, in other words, there's an argumentational mean, which is the truth. And the truth is that which has the flattest or most downhill, I guess, rhetorical slope. When people say dumb things, those things tend to get extinguished because people don't like being made to look bad. And saying something dumb is a good way to get yourself made to look bad, you know? And you know, what I found is that it's not, it works surprisingly well to tell truths that you think aren't good enough, right? Like, well, I'm just not feeling like it right now. It works surprisingly well if you have a good sense of, I can do this in this instance, but I can't do this in this instance. Like, this is too important, but this isn't that important. You have to have a sense of that. But if that's the real reason, and you're willing to then you should be willing to tell people that. Like, actually, I'm not going to do this right now because I don't feel like it right now. I'm really not feeling it, you know? If that makes them not want to be my client anymore, then that's fine. But if I believe it's legitimate enough for me to cancel something for that reason, then I need to man up and tell the truth about it, you know? So I basically don't, I won't say I never lie. I almost never willfully choose to lie. So it's like, and take somebody like Kimberly, my last relationship partner. I mean, I tend to agree with you, MJ. In any types as ones that stretch the truth, and an ENTP is very good at spinning stuff, at turd polishing, at dissembling, at muddying the waters in general, and turning people all backwards and forwards, and so they don't know which end is up. It's an aspect of my type, or it's I guess you'd say a typicality of ENTPs that I hope to share as little as possible and don't approve of. I've come to understand that as far as ENTPs go, I am more fair and I am more authentic and vulnerable. I think that's true than most ENTPs. But I don't. So what advice do you need, Abraham? I advise you to eat plenty of cheese. Stalin said that dumb people shouldn't get guns. Do you believe me? Look, Stalin quotes. That's not advice that you need. Check out this website. It will take 2 minutes. It's not you needing advice on something. It's confusing for NI types, but any weakness is not keeping track. NI keeps track, but it takes time for whatever happened to register. NI keeps incredible track. I've been caught in a couple of lies by Rachel that are told to my dad, or one specifically that I told to my dad that it was months later that I contradicted myself and she called me on it. And that was when I realized, oh shit, I've got one of those exceptions carved out about my dad. I think it's okay to lie to him if I'm confident he can't catch me in it. I need to stop that. And of course, it wasn't like I was doing it all the time anyway. It's just there were some things that I just didn't want to get into with him, I still find it fascinating how common it is to own a gun in the U.S. There's a gun in this home. We have a 22 rifle. It's a single bullet at a time gun, bolt action. You put a bullet in, and then you go or something like this and move it around like this, and then you can shoot it. But I've never owned a gun. That's my dad's rifle. He's also got a pellet gun, BB gun, air pistol that he uses to shoot at the squirrels when they try to eat our fruits from the trees. He doesn't like the squirrel eating a peach from the peach tree. Because the squirrels will come over to the peach tree, right, when the peaches are almost ripe, and they'll like wrestle with the peach and like yank it off of the tree and carry it back up to their tree, and then they'll eat like 4 bites of it and then drop it on the ground and then come back and get another one. So what causes school shootings? What's the reason behind most people's action? Is it mental illness or bullying? I mean, Grass Eater's answer is as good as any. Probably both. The thing is, mass shootings in general are horrible things, of course. But, as far as actual threats to people's well-being, they represent a very minor, tiny percentage of deaths. The thing is, Razor M, or which one is more what? I mean, it depends who's doing the shooting. It differs depending on the situation. I think that the kind of mass shooting that regular people can understand the mass shooter best is the scenario where you have a teenager who's been bullied mercilessly for years and then finally snaps, shows up at school, and shoots everybody. People can kind of understand that. They can kind of put themselves in that kid's shoes. They get that, okay, they're a teenager, their brain's not fully developed, and they had enough torture, and they should never have been forced to go to school. Compulsory school is appalling. The things that we do with children are often appalling. Like, why is it okay only for us to do that to them, to children, that we can force them to go in a place and be with people they don't want to be around for extended periods of time, and force them to be at those people's mercy and stuff like that? And then the answer is always, well, the adults need to do a better job of policing this shit. That's not good enough, man. I mean, if you coerce people to go someplace they don't want to go and be around people they don't necessarily want to be around, and be at the mercy of teachers who are fundamentally operating like little earls in their own fiefdoms, having this arbitrary control over students' time, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Fortunately, that's the one good thing of COVID, right? All this remote schooling, I think it's fantastic. I think it's exactly what needs to happen. Well, I mean, I just don't think that school's a good place to socialize, for children to socialize. They're not selecting, they're not encountering naturally occurring social situations. Like, for example, I had my childhood here around the neighborhood and at school, right? And around the neighborhood, there were lots of kids my age, and we all played together. And we were all running around the neighborhood unsupervised, riding skateboards, riding bikes, sneaking into the arboretum, doing whatever. I don't ever remember getting bullied outside of school. It's weird. There are plenty of people around, not all of whom I got along with. I don't ever remember getting bullied outside of school. I'm sure we had our arguments and stuff. I'm sure I ran home crying on occasion when my friends said something mean or whatever. But I never experienced bullying outside of school. But I experienced bullying in school for sure. So I mean, I guess I could say I've experienced on the being the bully end as well, bullying somebody on the way back from school. I mean, talk about a terrible memory. I was on the medium low spectrum of bullying, low spectrum probably. Like, as far as getting bullied some, doing a little bit of bullying, but mostly not in that bullying spectrum but there were people who were, and it was worse back in the day than it is now by far. And it's like, I've never seen in real life anything close to the cruelty that I saw in school. So the place where we keep the children, where we force the children to go together, that's where the most cruel and awful things a person will ever experience in their entire life, they're going to experience it then and there. What the fuck? So, I mean, the thing is, I think education is entirely backwards. We have it as a educator-driven process rather than a student-driven process. Students should learn things they need to learn for specific purposes. If you want to make things more purposeful, then fine. And I think you should. Then we need to take more of an apprentice style of an approach, where if I have a student writing something as an assignment, it better be because it's going to be published somewhere, or at least has a chance to be. Otherwise, why would they be doing it? Why is it that we don't expect children to actually have to have their own reasons for doing things? You know, that the teacher's arbitrary instruction is reason enough. Even if it's published on a blog or something. Right now, it's like I am begrudgingly helping my student with trying to get better grades in his English class, which means jumping through this teacher's arbitrary hoops. That's my bad. I'm one of those people who didn't hit like. My bad. Sorry. Sorry, Winston's mom. That's my bad. I'll go hit like now. Oh. Okay. Actually, there's only 4 people. It's not 5, it's 4. Now it's 5. I made it 5. You'd rather go to the pub than to be a publisher. The point is, fine. Look, not everybody needs to write things to be published. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody needs to write things to be published. Fine. But then why are you taking a writing class then? You know? What is the thing a given student actually wants to do with their time that could be possibly productive? Now, granted, if you say, okay, kids, you just do whatever you want with all of your time, then a lot of kids will spend all time playing video games and whatever. And then that's terrible because why exactly? Why is it so terrible again? I'm not sure. I heard this awesome phrase misquoted. If a child feels a lack of warmth from his community, he will burn it down to be warmed by the fire. If the community fails to provide a child warmth, the child will extract warmth from the community by burning it down. That's another way to put it, you know. Eric looks like what I imagine Father John Misty is going to look like when he's older. Who's Father John Misty? I like the quote a lot. I mean, I think the thing is, you're still on the gun thing. To me, the gun question is a non-issue because look, if you got to remember something, we have every average person is able to purchase many gallons of gasoline without hardly any difficulty at all. And, you know, the amount of damage that can be done with that and this is at least on scale with mass shootings. I like to say, if fire were discovered today, it will require very hard to get special permit to have one of these. It's just way too dangerous. You can't let regular people have access to fire. I mean, well, sure. Look, but you're saying, you know, where the problem is this. Whether or not the purpose of driving is legitimate, it seems legitimate to us now, but you could certainly have plenty of environmentalists perhaps who say that's not a legitimate purpose to put all that carbon in the atmosphere. Certainly guns have a legitimate purpose. Weapons of war, well, their purpose is to wage war. And I'm not an absolutist when it comes to gun rights. I don't think that people need to have machine guns. And I know that I wish I had phrased it differently. Obviously, people don't need to have machine guns, but that's true of everything except for food, basically. I think it's a reasonable restriction on people's rights to limit the magazine capacity and and killing power, functionally, of guns. There are already a lot of gun laws that restrict people to semi-automatic weapons and things like that. I am not opposed to those kind of regulations. I think they're largely reasonable. I think that the right to bear arms is not a right to bear any arms. And I think that it's not a bad thing. Also, it's also the case that I think it is not a bad thing that there are so many guns in America. That does not bother me at all. I mean, as far as products that kill people, percentage of the percentage of guns that kill people is much smaller than the percentage of cars that kill people. Well, emailed anthrax, what I would say to agree with you here is that there shouldn't probably be federal gun laws, but the Constitution should not incorporate necessarily all aspects of the Second Amendment, which is to say, the Bill of Rights was originally written as a way to make sure the federal government not only understood that it was limited to the enumerated powers that it had, but that it also was forbidden explicitly from some other things, right? But the Supreme Court has expanded the scope of the Constitution, I think appropriately, by doing something called incorporating certain rights. To incorporate an element from the Bill of Rights is to say that this applies to all the states just as much as it does to the federal government. So I don't believe the Second Amendment is incorporated in terms of the sense that the Supreme Court has affirmed the fundamental right for every individual to own a handgun or a rifle. But I don't think that it's useful for us to much debate the gun issue very much anymore. There are sufficient gun laws in place that people are adequately limited in terms of what guns they can have. There will occasionally be shootings. There will be mass shootings. There will be gun deaths. And that's the price of liberty. You know, it's like that which is not expressly forbidden is permitted, is the default rule for a free society. Weaponry has been around forever. Should I be able to own a crossbow? Should I be able to own a bow and arrow? Should I be able to own a sling? I mean, there are lots of different ways to project an object through the air and kill people. And for all of human history, humans have used weapons as important tools for a variety of reasons. Sometimes to get food, often to make yourself less of a target even. You know, if you're talking about a walled city in the Middle Ages with guards on top of it, bows and arrows and lances and stuff, they probably don't ever engage in combat. It's just there to dissuade people looking for easy pickings. So there's, you know, okay, Sky Gear, comical mini bombs have really captured my imagination. I like the idea of them being effectively like having good kill power, but at the same time making a wacky sound when they explode, like waka waka waka, or razzle razzle do, something like that, you know. Well, okay, so Alt says the right to bear arms, in my opinion, means you should legally be allowed to own tanks and literally any arm you want. Well, I suspect that your interpretation of it is more TI correct than mine. There are not, the only qualification in the Second Amendment is the maintenance of a well-regulated militia being necessary to the, well-regulated militia being necessary to the maintenance of a free state. Is that what it says? But that's not a qualifier in any sense. It's sort of like an explanation as to why we're affirming this, but it doesn't change what's being affirmed. So, well, right, they were specific about arms for a reason, but that reason is not what you're trying to posit it as being. The reason was, the vision of the founding fathers was sort of a nation of yeoman farmers who, if not each independently armed and having their small spread out communities well armed and stuff, that the people of the nation would be subject to attack from within by Native Americans, attack from without by other countries who were maybe greedy for our land or something. And there was good cause to be worried about that, as we had the War of 1812. There was that one. So, that wasn't that long after the Constitution. The thing is, that's not the situation anymore. We are not a nation of yeoman farmers spread out and each possessing a minimum of 40 acres of land. It's just not the way it is. So we have to allow for the reality that some things need to be interpreted a little differently in the current context. So, for example, they didn't have tanks and fighter planes and nuclear bombs when they were in the Constitution. Their idea of a well-armed populace was armed with rifles, muskets, and had bayonets attached to them and such. So it is reasonable to revisit the question. It's also the case that there are lots of nations where people don't have the right to own guns and that nevertheless qualify as free societies. So it's not correct to say that it's a precondition of being a free society. I'm in favor of the population owning guns because there's a responsibility implicit to it. You're taking responsibility for yourself, your family, your community potentially. I don't really want that responsibility. It's like, but if my dad were to pass tomorrow, heaven forbid, I'd probably keep the gun. It might as well have one. It's here, probably wouldn't ever much take it out or do anything with it, but I'd probably keep it. I wouldn't sell it, I guess. It's an old gun. I mean, it's got to be super old. It seemed old when I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, of course, my dad, and in fact, he still has it in the same way. But the gun was leaning in the corner of his closet with stacks of ammunition next to it. And this was his gun safe. Eric, don't play with the gun. That's the 70s for you. Did I play with a gun? Yes, I did. I took it outside and shot it one time. But of course, my dad is of the silent generation. He was born in the 30s and he grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania. And of course, guns were part of your daily operation. There were deers to be hunted for food, and rabbits. And I don't remember my dad ever mentioning this, but it seems like maybe there'd be predators coming towards the farm that you have to shoot at or something. I don't know. But regardless, it just seemed very natural to him that there'd be a gun around, and that, you know, he planned to teach me about it and take me shooting and stuff. My mom didn't like the idea, I don't think, but I did go shooting with him one time. I just didn't like it very much, and so I didn't. It wasn't like I was like, that was fun, Dad. Let's do that again. Yeah, I agree with you all. The founding fathers were geniuses beyond any reckoning. That Constitution is a real work of art. Unfortunately, I mean, the thing is, I was not told really not to play with knives. I was told to cut away from myself all times. That's one lesson my dad drove home early on in my life, because at some point in my childhood, I was probably doing this, cutting towards me, and he hammered this lesson: always cut away from yourself. And I have ever since. But yeah, I had knives and stuff as a kid. I was given knives. Like, I still have knives. I was given like a Swiss Army knife, but I was pretty little still. Of course, you got to remember the 70s were a different time when it came to childhood safety. You know, there were no helmets. Nobody wore any helmets at all. Nobody put on their seatbelt when they were driving around in the car. We used to play stand up in the back of the bus when we had this VW van, and me and my friends would stand up in the back of the bus, and my mom would go around corners and we'd go, whoa, and we'd fall against one side and fall against the other side. Well, one time my friend Paul and I, we fell out of the bus as it was driving onto the ground. You may have heard me tell this story before. I'm an SI type. I repeat some of my stories when they seem relevant. You know, I never know if how many people have heard it. Alt almost cut off his toe with an axe chopping wood when he was 4 or 5 years old. That's a good that's a good learning experience for a 4-year-old. that really sticks. It really sticks in your mind when you're 4. It'll help you to remember that. I had an electrocution issue one time when I was, I don't know, 10, 11, 12. I went to plug in the leaf blower, and I had my finger between I guess I put my fingers on the metal part of the plug. I was like, ah! And finally I let go, and I just burst into tears. And my dad's like, what happened? Smooth like Shark Dick says, what surprised your IQ is 107? You seem much smarter than average, especially over there. Yeah, I'm not. I'm just a regular phone. It's like, the thing is, what I'm talking about in terms of cognitive functions and typology and stuff, this is best proof right there that it's not difficult. It's not like I'm saying stuff that's rocket science. People just need to listen to me. It's not very challenging. I've only got an IQ of 107. I could figure it out. So I'm sure everybody else can understand what I'm saying as well. You know? That's the great thing about having an IQ of 107 is it really kind of eliminates other people getting to say that they don't understand, or that I'm being too complicated or too wordy, or I'm talking too fancy, or I'm trying to sound smart, or whatever. No, I got an IQ of 107. Okay, I'm not trying to sound smart or anything like that. What I'm saying, it makes perfectly good sense. You just need to think about it a little bit. My FE makes me wonder about the username. It's not too vulgar, is it? Smooth like Shark Dick? No, I don't think so. Not too vulgar. I'd say it's quite an evocative in its imagery. I appreciate that. Yeah, the test I took was for visual spatial pattern recognition, which is, it's like my very worst kind of question to answer. I suspect my actual IQ on an IQ test is around 130, which is not particularly high. It's not genius or anything like that, if you want the truth of the matter. But I'm happy to be 107. I'll stick with 107 any day. 107 is great. 107 works in my favor beautifully, more than any other score I could possibly get. You know, it's like having an IQ of 107 is so empowering, right? If you think about it argumentationally, because I have to face a lot of bullshit from people about a lot of different things. But if I go, well, look, hey, I'm not trying to be too fancy for you here or anything. I'm a regular guy. My IQ is 107, blah, 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 blah. You know, the thing is, here's the truth of the matter is in my specific maximally good area, my IQ is as high as it can possibly be. But that's a very narrow, teeny little kind of attention, you know? So when you're talking about making up a song on the fly that rhymes with words, music, lyrics, chords, everything like that, all in one, I can do that probably about as well as anybody. But, you know, when it comes to debating stuff, debating resolutions, I can do that extremely well. You know, you can find somebody way more intelligent than me. They probably still can't beat me in an argument. If we disagree about anything, I'm more likely to be right than they are. I mean, but why? Why is it necessarily the case that my verbal ability betrays the claim of 107? Can't people with a 107 have... I mean, what it really betrays is the point of this stupid fucking test, right? I am going to be perceived as very smart because I sound smart by some people, or at least, and then there are people who are smart like I'm smart are going to be like, you're not that smart because of all the FE shit. So 107 is fine. I'll just stick with that. I don't even want to get involved in all that bullshit. I care about the things I'm saying, the ideas I'm trying to articulate, the points I'm making. I don't care about whether it's like if you think I'm right because my number is high enough, that's a stupid reason to think I'm right anyway. The type most likely to beat me in an argument would be either INTJ or INTP. The three best types of debaters are ENTP, INTP, and INTJ, not necessarily in that order. I've coached debate for a long time, and my best debaters have been ENTPs, INTPs, and INTJs. My two best all-time debaters, my best all-time, probably an INTJ. Grace, even though she didn't achieve results, she was probably my best. She could run my most sophisticated cases correctly. But it's because she learned how to do them the way I wanted her to do them, whereas INTPs they don't trust you. It doesn't matter that I'm an ENTP longtime coach of debate with an incredibly good record of success and national champions and stuff. INTP, fifth grader, still thinks they know better than me. I shit you not. And they just shine you on. Yeah, okay, I hear you. But then they do what they want to do. I'm talking specifically about Edmund. Edmund was my INTP, my other best debater of all time that I had. And I explained to him, Edmund, yes, that judge told you needed to meow more, but now you've trying to add a spike against that into your case. So what Edmund ended up with was like this case that spent half of his time spiking out arguments that he lost on another topic against, like figuring out how that kind of argument might incarnate for this topic and spiking out against it because he one time lost around because the judge one time told him this thing or that thing. I'm just like, Edmund, no, dude, stop caring so much about what that judge said. That judge was wrong. Listen to me. You sometimes are going to lose some rounds because of bullshit. Edmund didn't ever want to lose any round. He thought if he was just had ideated it all out and had it all set up in advance enough that he would never lose a round. He's gonna lose some rounds. It's unavoidable, you know. It doesn't necessarily mean you did something wrong either. Sometimes you just get judge fucked. I told him this. But, you know, yeah. I'm an INTP. I'll decide everything myself. INFJs are more intuitive than INTJs about aesthetics, for sure, but not about problem solving, for sure. You did debate in high school for 4 years and was one of the leads, the strongest for the ISTJ and the ENTJ. Oh, I'm surprised an ISTJ would be strong at all, but they must have been super prepped. Are you sure they were an ISTJ? ENTJ, I had one of my strongest debaters ever was an ENTJ. It took her longer to get good than it took the INTP and the INTJ, but it was sort of a cumulative goodness effect, you know? What was her name? I'll put a link to my little ENTJ debater so you can see that. If I still have that video, I bet I do still have that video. Let me look for it. What was her name? What was her name? Aha, this one, Courtney, right?
Observation 1. Just launch use of red and force against systems where the system valid advice to develop. Observation 2. A piece of science expecting the fundamental quality of each to regardless of social science of law.
Here.
My value technique is back to copyright. So, this, whichever side
this is my best ENTJ debater I ever had. But you can listen to her.
Consult 2014E. The reason property rights are more fundamental than a copyright is resources. As medicine explains, human act to which means to employ certain scarce means to achieve certain chosen ends. Framework 2, property rights are the only means to determine justice. Consult 2014A. As an example, if I hit you, it is aggression because you own your own body. If I take an apple from you, it is aggression only if you own the apple. If it is my apple and I am retrieving it from the thief, the act of force needs to take it back is not aggression. We cannot determine whether given parents border crossing, invasion, or theft, or trespass, or aggression unless we first identify.
She's not Indian.
Violence in response to that which is not aggression is to argue in favor of aggression. Consult 2014C. What this all means is that in the eyes of libertarians, anyone who argues for the state is arguing for aggression, and therefore for injustice. One can favor the state, but he cannot justify it. It is easier to commit murder than to justify it. Likewise, as we libertarians see,
one can favor the state, but one cannot justify it. It is easier to commit murder than it is to justify it. Yeah, she was good. That was my ENTJ. Okay, if you want to see my INTP, let me find my INTP debater. I don't know if I have any film of grace or not. Edmund. That's the other Edmund. Hello. I'm there. Can you mute your mic if you're not talking? Where's Edmund killing it?
What the government does. People benefit. What the government does more than we realize. The U.S. is just such a nice place to live because we have used government policy by investing in infrastructure and education, enforcing contracts.
And of course, he's fucking around right there. You know, he's like playing to the crowd, the kids in the class in that instance. Just what you would expect from Mia. INTP, you know. Let's see. Okay, so can you explain to me why it would be that an extended primary season would cost more than a single-day primary, given the candidates would have to stockpile huge amounts of money in the initial
for one
So-
big all of a sudden burst of expenditure, whereas over the long
The
term,
kid on the
you
right.
spread this cost out. Why would it be fair to the wealthy to have the fact that your normal
one day national primary, the federal government making
Well,
that
that's not a very
is
good
illegal.
example, but whatever. Who cares? The point is, I took down a lot of the videos that I have from debate before because YouTube went through this thing where they got like super fussy about kids, So even though all of everything I ever had up there with any kid in it was either like kid doing debate or asking them typing questions. So there was nothing but just purely innocent good stuff there. But I got a little skittish, so I took down a lot of my stuff that had minors in it. MJ, you think Cloud's an ESTJ? Wow. Pretty cool. I've had a really good INFJ debater as well, MJ. I would say their INFJs are not as good as INTPs, ENTPs, or INTJs, but they're about as good as ENTJs. And Lyle's a good INFJ debater. Let me see if I should check my email and see if that lady emailed me back. Okay. I guess she didn't email me back yet. Let's see. Kobus says, okay, well, there's that. So, if anybody would like to talk with their voice instead of with their genitals like they are currently, you're welcome to go into the autonomy room, and you won't be seen on the stream, but you'll be heard. I still teach debate, yeah.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I still teach debate. I have only one client at the moment that I work with. His name's Jeffrey. He's an EHP like me. And the thing about coaching him, it's really quite gratifying, is that I get to see how important debate is in fixing the EHPs. He's so ignoring. He's so prone to not doing what we prepped, but rather whatever the newest idea that I said happened to mention is, or whatever the newest idea he comes up with is. It's like he needs to be organized. He needs to fucking be NI, and he needs to nutshell shit. And this point of this argument is yeah, But he had so much trouble with it. So I feel like I'm really doing good work working with him, and also I feel like I'm doing good work working with his parents because I'm telling his ESTJ mom, listen. What you say is the easy part is easy for you. It's not the easy part for him. You got to understand his personality type.
When people respond better to TE or TI when they're like basically being criticized, like they'd be more disciplined or something. Well, actually, that's not actually something. Like I float something to you, like ENTP son and ESTJ mom, single mom, right? I'm just a friend this around. And so thinking like, oh, you want to drink or something like that. It's like, but hey, you've already said that. The partying days are behind you. You already said this. She's going really heavy like that. For me, the way it feels is that it feels very thick. and smothering, like it almost makes me like want him to go and experience something because I feel like he's like now he's getting FOMO or something. But the way that I would say it is like even in that moment, the same very moment that I'm there, I'm like, hey man, like you're married now, you got a kid, like, but you do celebrations, you don't just get fucked up, like, you know what I mean? Like make add some kind of Inception coming in under with Ti, like something like that, like just that the idea to him. I'm trying to get him to think of himself that way, like he doesn't drink just to drink to get fucked up.
Okay, well, I mean, it's a matter of whether or not the person's basically an interface type, or basically knowledge type, or basically an action type, or basically a deliberation type. So it's like when somebody else is telling when somebody else is telling you what you should or shouldn't do, whether or not you go along with that, it depends on a lot of factors. Like,
well, yeah, like, yeah. Oh, sorry. It's harder for me to understand in a way because when you have EJ, like you just want to be what man ought to do. Like you're trying to live up to that. Like, that's what you want to do. So,
I mean, the thing is, I've had my daughter has said to me on a couple of occasions, a number of occasions, like, don't start drinking again, stuff like that, because she was somewhat traumatized by my drunk period, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't object to that because I have no intention of drinking, so whatever, but
yeah.
It's like Rachel and I are both enjoying a great deal being two sevens who are together, who are habitually not trying to find things to bust each other about. It seems like a lot of people in relationships spend their time trying to find things to bust each other about.
Well, I watched a lot of your channel, yeah. Like, it just seemed like, you get to argue with other people and, like, you have to use that part of yourself. And, like, then she just want to fight with you, but she doesn't understand how much it's sticking you. Like, you're not trying to do, And she's, like, trying to, but without really understanding how that plays,
Who?
It's kind of, I don't remember. I think maybe Kimberly.
Kimberly? Oh, Kimberly, yeah. That was.
Like, I would see her, like, doesn't even know, she's not sure herself, like, how far she's willing to go, So it's like, it's really hard to imagine that.
I mean, that relationship was a nightmare, but it's also indicative of the question of the topic here of good, evil, or dumb. Kimberly was not an evil person, but she did a lot of bad things, to me anyway. But at the same time, she wasn't a bad person. And I feel more sorry for her than I do condemnatory of her. It became so clear to me by the end that her behavior was an imprint of trauma and reflective of it, that even though she still was successful at pushing my buttons until the very end, once we ended the relationship, I just felt nothing but compassion. It's like BPD. I don't know if people can really get over that or not. Maybe it depends on your type.
That's what happened. Well, I'm not saying because it's my first wife, but my first wife has that, and every shrink we went to told me to leave her, and she wouldn't do any medicine or any kind of therapy. So.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the sort of symptoms or ways the BPD plays out is BPD people are very, very resistant to being diagnosed as such. In fact, I remember talking to Kimberly about it and said, well, look, Kimberly, I mean, there's something going on here. If you're not BPD, then you're just being emotionally abusive all the time. She said, yeah, that's it. I'm just emotionally abusive.
Yeah.
Like somehow that's better than being BPD, right?
Yeah. My wife, she's Japanese. She's like, look at you, look at me. She just said that. That's it. I was like, yeah, I know. She's like, yeah, you're not gonna die. I'm like, I know. Like, you shouldn't be afraid of me. I know, but I'm not doing to you. It's like not the same thing. It's not like I'm afraid for my life. It's like breaking my heart that you just want to be angry with me, you know.
SLSD, which stands for smooth like smart shark dick. The dude talking is an ENFJ, actually. That's Sean, by the way, is the dude talking. I mean, look, arguing can be healthy depending on how it's done. The thing is, my parents had a weird way of interacting with each other, and there was very little conflict in the house. It basically was my dad sort of drove the car of the relationship between them, more or less, and the family as well, decided what was happening and what was going to go down and what we were doing and stuff like that. But anytime, and my mom would mostly go along with stuff if it seemed pleasant enough. But anytime my mom didn't like the idea of something, she would go, David, no. And then my dad would be like, okay. And that was how they resolved all their problems. They didn't have any conversations, right? My dad just did what he wanted until he pushed up against one of my mom's boundaries. Then she freaked out like that and cried. She spent half of her, like, she'd cry at the drop of a hat, you know? And my dad would just be like, okay, well, I guess that matters to your mom, so we're going to do it that way. And it was just, it's like, they're ESTJ, ISFJ. My dad's an ESTJ, my mom's an ISFJ. We got those textbook parent types, right? And my dad is such an ESTJ dad, and my mom was such an ISFJ mom, and it was all. And I'm a textbook ENTP. We're all textbook examples of our type. Although it is interesting, my dad. One thing I will say about him that is you would not expect, and this is proof of why you should never trust correlates when typing people. My dad has a doctorate in philosophy. He's an ESTJ with a doctorate in philosophy. So it's like, if you look at correlates and you go, okay, well, this guy's got a doctorate in philosophy, he must be an INTP or something. No, he's an ESTJ. Why did he get a doctorate in philosophy? He thought it was interesting, I guess. You know, it's like when I ask him questions early on in life, he talked to me about philosophy stuff and free will and religion, God, and atheism and stuff like that. But it wasn't very late into those discussions that I started asking questions he couldn't answer. And that was the end of the conversation, basically. If he didn't know the answer already, well, I don't know. That's not part of it. What do you mean that's not part of it? That's just, the book didn't go into that. It's like he knows what he read. That's it. Yeah, that's my guess. Is that the only reason he went into philosophy is because he thought it was the alternative to theism. He came from a very religious area, Pennsylvania Dutch area. He was Brethren, Church of the Brethren, it goes Amish, Mennonites, Church of the Brethren. So Church of the Brethren is like two levels of hardcore removed from Amish, but they're still kind of hardcore compared to, like, I don't know, Universal Unitarians or something. No offense. No offense, Sean. What career did my dad have? He was an administrator with LA County Schools. He was a principal. He was an assistant superintendent. He was a regional director he was a director for the regional center. He also was a director for the Census Bureau for a couple of years. Like he ran a Census Bureau section in Compton. There's these pictures in some of my dad's photo albums of him, like, standing, looking ESTJ-ish in his tie and his suit in a room full of nothing but black women. Like some sort of plantation overseer or something. And he'd tell stories about how he'd go around the neighborhood and make sure that he talked to all the different, like, businesses around and everybody. And so, because it was that somebody came in with a gun to the Census Bureau thing, looking for where's Charlene? Is Charlene back there? Something like that, right? Had a gun. And that my dad's, like, number one lady got up and was just like, Darnell, you are going to take that gun. And then Darnell said, I'm sorry, Mom. And he walked out. This is a story my dad told me about his time at the Census Bureau in Compton. Isn't that interesting?
Wow. Why is it that people can't see my NI? Like, I feel like it's like a very, very simple one. It's not precog. It's not like even a pattern recognizing. Like, it would just be literally like, I learned this because of
who doesn't see
that,
it,
and that's intuition. You know, like,
who doesn't see it?
Many people. You know, like if for me, when I was this last weekend was amazing for me. We had a regional gathering, like the tween or whatever, on Discord, and one of the woke sex was I don't know, she was an INTJ. And the kids she's seeing them going through some other camera and sees them out there on the porch and sees the setup that they have. And just seeing that setup there, you just watch her just epiphany after epiphany, and she says those epiphanies, right? Like she's like learning in that moment, like how it's set up and how it works that way to that advantage and everything. And she's just discovering that knowledge right there. And that's what I mean, like whenever I do a video or something, I'm showing AI, that's what I'm doing, is to show that to be like the really, really obvious, most low-hanging fruit in AI. Like I'm showing you when I literally discovered knowledge, right? So it's like, that's it. Like, that's the most basic, shortest path to grab. Like,
okay, well, that's all well and good, but he still didn't answer my question as to who it is who doubts your NI. But regardless, I want to address
basically Facebook groups. Like, it's an open for. It's like, there's thousands of people in there, and if you post anything or try to say anything, like, who knows how many people are gonna just start bandwagoning. Like, nope, you don't have this. Everyone wants to call everyone like FI. SE something, or I don't even know. It's
yeah, well, people like to doubt intuitives a lot of times. I want to address something here. Somebody said, I bet my dad has a lot more of interesting stories. He does have a lot of interesting stories, and he's led a very interesting life. So, for example, that movie Ford versus Ferrari, that Le Mans, that particular race, he was at that Le Mans race working for Ford. He was somebody who held up a sign. So he didn't have a very exciting job there, but that says come into the pit stop now, or don't come into the pit stop now, or something, I guess. He held up the sign. But here's the interesting thing is he went to the hospital with one of the drivers who died during the race, who crashed and died, and was there and accompanied the driver's widow and comforted her in the hospital there over the death of her husband. And in fact, he told me this story, and I was like, that's cool. That's great. And Rachel and I were sitting there, and he's like, yeah, they even wrote about it in a book. And he busts out a book, and there it says, and it's a story about like car racing or whatever. And it says David Strauss, accompanied.
It must have felt so good to do that.
It felt good to me. It felt good to me because it's like, my dad's crazy stories are not bullshit.
That's awesome, man.
My dad's crazy stories are not bullshit. They're true. It's like the thing is, when he was in the military in Europe, he was in the military band that would go and travel around France and play in the local communities. And so it was basically like he was the official Army traveling party. That was his job. That was one of his jobs. He's also a wrestling coach on the base. He much preferred the Army over the Navy because he got seasick in the Navy. So that's when he switched to the Army, he got sent to Europe, to Germany first, and then to France. And the thing is, what did he do there in his free time? In addition to all that shit he did, he raced Mini Coopers.
Whoa.
Yeah, he raced Mini Coopers, and in the way that they did it back then, there was a driver and a navigator. He was the driver. Dale, which is my middle name, I was named after his navigator. They had a falling out some years back, actually, so I don't think he's still friends, but they were friends until At least I was like 18. I visited him in England when I was an 18-year-old. But yeah, my dad did a lot of interesting things. And he's traveled so much too. That's the crazy thing. That's what third slot extroverted intuition with demonstrative SE and tool function SI means is you travel a lot, but you travel the same places a lot. So he's always going down to the Palm Desert. He used to always go up to Mammoth. He'd go to Washington State frequently, Colorado. But then, you know, my mom wanted to visit places internationally. They've been to Japan, been to Ireland. They've been all over the world. So I don't know. They've had a pretty exciting life for an ESTJ and an ISFJ, you know?
Did you see this chat question?
Which one?
That I put in this chat.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not looking at that screen.
Oh, okay.
Let me see.
I didn't want to ask if it's like.
I can see it's lucrative.
Well, it's like the first question. It's like the question. That's what I'm saying. Is that even a thing? Like.
Aspirational fourth slot?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's seeking. I think it's third slot is aspirational.
Okay.
Fourth slot is third slot's aspirational. You have a sense that you can achieve in it, and you want to, and you feel satisfied when you do, and you feel bad when you fail in it. Fourth slot is seeking in the sense that you'd like to delegate as much of it as possible, ideally, and you probably take some satisfaction in only some minor parts of it. So, for example, your fourth slot function is TI.
Yeah.
Now, TI is a function that's almost entirely metaphysical. So, for you, it's not like there's really a strong physical aspect to it, but at least I have trouble describing a physical aspect to it. But regardless, it means that you feel satisfied when the TE is done right. But ideally, you'd like to hand that off to an algorithm to process the TI for you. You know?
Yeah. Well, like I used to play Magic, right? Like in a group and stuff. And so the FE part that's there, like I would want our group to do well. I would want us to all be playing our best like that. And I thought I really would love a competition and like that. But whenever I would go, and if I played and I win, it didn't make me feel some kind of way and whatever. It's like I understood what happened, but it's not the same. It's kind of be like then my friend comes by, then I can feel happy. Hey, I won, like we're doing good, you know. Like
I mean, I think Magic the Gathering is a very TE game. I don't think it's very TI at all. So I would expect it very likely that you're better at Magic than I am. I used to play Magic quite a bit too, but the thing is, what Magic the Gathering is really all about is putting together combinations that make you win as fast as possible, right? There's all these other different ways to play, but that's the winning. That's the winning way to play. And
there's a couple of aptitudes, right? Like you always do power for consistency. You're trying to hit that optimum depending on what strategies like there.
The problem is it runs afoul of my implicit value of novelty, which is to say I don't like that kind of game. I want a kind of game that's more open-ended, where I want to be able to put a bunch of random cards in my deck, and have a good chance of winning because it's more of a loose system than that, you know.
Yeah.
But that's too much of a tight system. Like poker is more TIFE because it's the calculations on it are pretty straightforward, and it's mostly about reading the people. That's why I'm terrible at it.
You don't want any FI in that one in a way though.
But the thing is, FI polar doesn't mean a lack of FI. It means
that's true.
a childlike relationship with it. In other words, you can read my emotions on my face in a second. I don't know even how to cover them up.
I see. Interesting.
Cloud is a unique snowflake. Okay, he doesn't have a type. He's just Cloud. Makes sense. I knew an ISTP who loved poker. ISTPs are probably pretty good at poker. I think INFJs are the best at poker. Maybe ENFJs are good at it, but I'm not sure.
I don't think INFJs are the best at poker.
You don't think so?
No, I think an extrovert's going to have an advantage, period.
In poker?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's more strength perceived, and you can't subconsciously turn that off. Like, people are always going to be like that. Like, I'm going to be more physically intimidating than an INFJ who has SC4 slot.
Okay, but I mean, see,
you're countering everything. It's a warfare for everything.
Okay, but listen, listen, hold on. So you're saying that the extrovert's going to have an advantage because of the extroverted half of poker, right? Namely, the expression of the display of strength. I'm saying the INFJ is going to have an advantage because of the receptive half of poker, the reading of other people.
Well, I think my reading other people is better than INFJ because they want to live in their own world, and I'm extroverting. I'm going out and reading everyone all the time. They only, if they can perceive someone that will value them, then they will waste their time playing with them. And they don't have the energy that an ENFJ does. Like Young says, like the energy of 3 minutes, or whatever. Like I don't run out of energy when I'm around people. Like they're never going to have the practice with their NI that I would have.
I mean, it's just a question of what you think.
And fuller SI is what you need in poker. If you're really going to win money, you need to play for like 3-4 days, then the count and just like go. Like that's
true.
That's a huge deal.
That's true. You gotta be very patient. It's interesting. I don't know. I think that the point is NFJs, the combination of NI and FE, are the right two functions for poker. I think that's much less so the case with Magic the Gathering, where I think the best two functions for Magic the Gathering are not NITI, but NITE. And I think the secondary function of importance for poker is TI, and the secondary function of importance for Magic the Gathering is TI, but they're both of minimal importance compared to the primary considerations, FE, NI for poker, and TE, NI for Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, T is huge. Like, if people don't understand that game, right? Like, you each take turns, so your TE is going to give you the rationale, what is the best card they could have, and you're going to start crossing out X's of what's in their hand. And the further the game goes, you have to continue that calculus the whole game. And then if good players, when they get to like turn 13, they know pretty much every card you have to have in your hand. Like, except for maybe like the one you most recently drew or the two you just most recently drew. Just from playing that game of like crossing out. If he had this, he would have played it here. That would have been too good. He couldn't have turned that down and so on, right?
MJ makes a good point. I think SE is important for poker. It's true that you got to be willing to take the action, be aggressive and stuff like that. I tend to play way too conservative when I play, but it's, I don't know. I play differently when I play a tournament than when I play cash games. It's like I play looser in tournament games, I think. I go in assuming I'm going to not probably make the money anyway, so just might as well splash around some pots. But if I'm playing a cash game, then it's like I play too tight and I never get any action. When I do have a hand, I just gotta. It's too much. There are too many conditions that have to be met for me to be successful playing tight. I got to both get lucky in terms of cards and in terms of position.
There are guys that play what they call GTO, and they really don't adjust for weakness, and they don't adjust for player tendency at all. They just try to play GTO the whole time, and they have been successful. Some of them, so maybe like a INTJ German doing that.
Right. Okay. I need to pull this bong rip. So.
Oh, I have a question about SE Polar with INFPs. Because that seems so complicated to me. Like trying to explain how I could see someone that's SE Polar. You know what I mean?
how can you identify someone as SE polar? Well, I'll tell you this much.
Because they're doing this SE thing where they try to attend to you, like you know what you said, right? Make you comfy or something like that. But they're doing that, aren't they?
I don't know. The thing is, you can't rely on self-reporting because ISFPs will also report as SE polar, even though they're SE tool. Consistently, or pretty consistently, I've discovered, having typed a bunch of ISFPs lately, that
They just want so bad, huh?
I'm not exactly sure why, because when you start pressing and asking more specific questions, you realize that they're answering all these questions in ways that are very different than an INFP would, and that they're actually, quite happy with doing stuff. They just have perhaps a sense of disappointment that they don't have more clarity as to their goal and purpose in life or something like that. But regardless, identify SE polar is like, hey, thanks, Tech Girl Tiff. I appreciate it. You're a gentlewoman, a scholar, and a reader of fine literature. I will say this, however. If you don't vote, that's totally fine. You feel no obligation to vote. Voting's a right, not a duty. Okay. Verya. I had no idea probably where the word virile comes from. Etymologically, etc. Do you think I'm virile, grass eater? How about you, Kshatriya Dharma? Who here thinks I'm virile? The other choice would be
puerile. Like
puerile. I can either virile or puerile.
Puerile. However you want to say it.
Bro, you haven't voted? I doubt I motivated anyone. Was mostly just throwing a super chat or explain. Thank you, Tech Girl Tiff. I appreciate it. I don't mind your jumping on the FE voting bandwagon for a second. You thought it was cheap and easy FE. You didn't realize anybody would object to say anything like, no, don't vote. Of course, Eric's super contrary, so he's got to say something like that. Okay, puerile is not the antithesis of virile. What's the antithesis of virile? Impotent? I guess those are my two choices, virile or impotent.
Toothless somehow, yeah.
Well, you be the judge.
Ecce impicura est Eric.
Invirile? I don't think invirile is a word.
No, invirile is not a word.
Maybe it would just be.
You could say ob. You could say obviral, probably. But that would be in Latin, and I don't think that came to English. Because ob meant away from. You could say ob periculum. It means not enough room. They still use that term for more wisdom teeth and stuff.
Well, what's a word that means a feeling of sexual meh, M-E-H, sexual meh.
Satiated.
Satiated? No, that's not sexual meh.
That's totally meh. I have no impetus to move.
Okay, but that's still not meh. It's still a positive relation. It's still a positive relationship with the sex act, right? You feel like you've been satisfied. Right. That's not one word, Winston's mom. Low sex drive is not one word. I want one word that means.
I went even lower though, less than content.
Okay, but hold on. I want a snappy term, specifically that means the opposite of virile in the sense that you just have a general sex.
Okay, I have one that's kind of cute. There's libido and libidon't.
Libidon't's not bad. Libidon't is not bad. That's pretty good NI there. That's some pretty good NI.
I didn't know.
I've got, see, impotent is not actually. I guess that is actually the opposite of virile, but impotent is a weird word because people can be impotent in a variety of ways and about a variety of things, but it defaults to the sexual meaning. So, a lame duck president might be rendered impotent by his political situation. But that doesn't mean he's sexually impotent necessarily. Flacile. I'd like to look that one up.
Flaccid.
No, I said flacile. It's like facile and flaccid combined. It's being facile at being flaccid, I guess.
Oh, so easily bent, right? Like easily, easily bending over kind of thing.
I'm gonna try to define it. It doesn't. No, it doesn't look like it's a word. I think it's a word that Hortzmumbler made up. I think.
Oh, well, that's rude.
No. That's fine. It's fine that he made it up. I like it. It's a good combo. It's what do they call words like that? Like brunch that are half one word and half the other.
Portmanteaus.
Portmanteaus, right? Yeah, portmanteaus. Good. That's a good answer. Thank you for that. For knowing that. The antonyms of virile are effeminate, impotent, and unmanly.
Yeah, I mean
that's not what I think of virile as meaning. I don't think virile means manly or masculine. I do think it means like you have a lot of libido. You are a Lothario or something, or you're in heat. If you're a chick and you're virile, then you're in heat. I like flacile. Flacile is a good word. I'm feeling rather flacile right now. But see, that sounds so limpy, right? I want something that sounds a little bit more like, no, I am not affording your boobs any of my headspace right now, like that. Kind of like, listen, I'm working. I'll hump you later. Kind of a bold, manly kind of anti-virile thing, right? I think that's what we need. We need a bold and manly anti-virile word.
Despondent?
No, that's sad. You want a word that says, listen, girl, you'll get my cock later. Not right now. I'm in the middle of something important.
Well, words are so funny.
Something like,
Darui. I want to say darui, but I don't know what it even is in English. It's not going to make sense.
Let me think. I guess you say I'm feeling later puss. Later puss is a pretty good word. It sounds like it could be from the German Leiterpusse. Could be, later puss. I'm feeling very later puss right now.
Dejected?
No, later puss. That just means I'm feeling like I don't want to have puss right now. I want it later.
Oh.
That's the word. I think that's the best word for it. Because you know what? Sometimes you just go with Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is the correct one. Later puss. America's already done. It was over before we were born. It's not done yet. It's not done. I'm still here. Okay? I'm going to start running after the inauguration. Officially, I'm going to I'll have my platform done hopefully by then. Later puss is a little too cumbersome though.
Oh, the chat did remind me of my question.
How about turpoo? That way you just take the middle of it. Turpoo.
How can I identify FI polar in a girl? And how can I identify SE polar in a guy? Because that's like impossible for me.
FI polar in a girl?
Yeah, because they got get you little wiles, man. I don't know.
They care a lot. They care a lot about your opinion. They don't seem to understand like that they're hot and you're the vulnerable one. That's FI polar in a girl. FI polar in a girl is weird because
I feel like it's like so stupid to do anything. As long as I said something that was technically true, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, that is true." I'd be like, I could just like blah 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 blah, and she can't get engaged with her FI. She's got TE, so I'd be like, and yeah, that's a fair price for you to shave my beard, so you totally do that, right? She's like, oh yeah, I totally do that. Okay, it's like
deli
forgetting all the man has to get there, right? It's like it's funny.
Okay, Sky Gear, I'm gonna go with deli poke as an easier to say way of rendering delay a fuck. Okay, deli poke is a synonym to later puss. or if you prefer, Turpu.
Well, here's a funny placebo thing, and I'm only assuming it's placebo. I don't know. But I remember watching Ally McBeal, right? And one of the main lawyers, the one that was always with the old judge, like going for the waddle or whatever, when he was with Lucy Liu, then he said he's in love with her. And he's like saying, like, he never would say that kind of thing. But then he said, look it up. It's like all science. Like, there's 0 refractory period and all this shit or whatever. And like, I heard that when I was too young. So that's what I thought, you know? And it was like that for me, but I didn't know. You know what I mean?
Sean, what do you think about this? Winston's mom says, what would you do if your date, we're going to go out on a date, but your date showed up in lederhosen? Good question, Winston's mom. Would you say, are we going to Oktoberfest? What's up with the lederhosen? Or just roll with it?
I mean, does that mean that my date's not a girl? Is that what he's trying to
No,
say?
it's a girl, but she's wearing lederhosen.
I don't think I care. Yeah, whatever.
Her first name is Leader and her last name is Hosen as well. Now do you
Well, I'm
care?
gonna put her name.
Look, she's wearing lederhosen, her name's lederhosen. And you get in the car, the back seat is filled, stacked from the seat to the ceiling with lederhosen. Are you starting to get a little creeped out now?
Not really.
She insists you put on lederhosen before you go with her to what she says is Oktoberfest.
Well, she can wish in one hand and shit in the other and see which fills up first.
Now, put on the lederhosen. She talks like that. This abuser of her platonic notions, Sky Gear. That's fancy talk for squeeze a boob or what?
The word like stuffing's going around in my head, but I don't know if it's actually Yiddish or if it's German.
Do you like girls in overalls? That's today's question to all the men out there or lesbian women. Do you find attractive girls in overalls? Who votes yes?
Not coveralls, overalls.
I vote yes, especially if they don't have a shirt and it's just the little straps that are covering their boobs like that, you know?
So we say bibbed overalls, and then coveralls is like the Carhartt thing. So I'm not really sure if you meant something. I don't know.
Well, if you're familiar with the historic and well-respected Playboy magazine, back in the day, they'd have an issue with, say, a girl who was from the countryside, a farm girl, if you will. And she'd be wearing her overalls, you know, but instead of her breast being covered by a shirt, like on the first picture, it was just the straps of the overalls that was covering just her nipples. And then when you turn the page, even those straps had been removed. It's typical of the thing that happens in the countryside, apparently. If you want to experience a different way of life, try going to farms in the country. What you'll see is bevies of incredibly attractive, large-breasted girls and going around shirtless, but with overalls covering their nipples.
And jeans rolled up to your knees, digging in manure in the barn to find night crawl.
My connection's unstable. Oh no! Whatever
What do you
shall
call
I
a girl
do?
from Kentucky who cannot run her brothers?
It fixed itself.
Oh.
Okay, let's see. I think I'm gonna call it a live stream.
All right.
Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna try to get something besides this done. So, thanks for being here, everybody. I enjoyed chatting with you. Thanks for being here, Sean. And don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. Bye, Bobby son. Remember, ass, gas, or grass, no one rides for free.